Hi everybody, just a short video today because I wanted to talk about my latest build, and that is this 18th century Belgian target crossbow. Now the reason why I say 18th century is because this type really evolved in the late 18th century. However, this is still used commonly today in crossbow clubs and shooting guilds in Belgium. So this form really evolved from some of the earlier Flemish target crossbows that we saw, anywhere from the 15th century onward. Those ones typically were a bit larger. They typically had a stirrup, and they also used a rolling nut lock. And that's a lock that we've looked at in previous videos, where there's a cylindrical lock, and there's fingers that go underneath the string to lock it into place. And then when you pull the trigger, it releases the nut so it can turn and in turn release the string. This one's different and similar to the Schnepper lock that we looked at in a previous video, where the catch snaps down on top of the string. In fact, that's what the word Schnepper means, snapper. With this crossbow, it's quite similar. The lock snaps down over the top of the string to hold it in place. Now, the major difference between this crossbow lock and the Schnepper is, on the Schnepper, you'll remember that there's a transverse notch over the top of the crossbow stock. Conversely, this crossbow does not have a notch. The string simply pulls straight back over the top of the stock and gets snapped into place by the lock. Other than that, the lock mechanism operates exactly like the Schnepper. Traditionally, this would have a set trigger system. So you would see two triggers here, one to set the hammer into place, and of course the other one to activate the lock and release the string. I've done a simplified version here where you just have the trigger, which pushes up on an internal lever bar that then drops down and releases the catch. One of the other important pieces of this crossbow is this spanning lever here. So the way that this functions, and again, similar to that Schnepper, where traditionally a Schnepper would have a ring at the front of the crossbow on which you can anchor a gaff lever, or a Wippe, as it's called in German. It would anchor, and then you would have another piece that pushes on the string to push it back, and then a long handle, which creates the mechanical advantage to spanning a heavy prod. In this case, it works exactly the same way, but instead of a ring on the front, there's a lug in front of the prod, where you hook on the spanning lever, the other fork pushes against the string, and you simply crank back that handle until it goes into the lock. And when the string pushes, there's a piece on the lock here. When the string pushes against it, it actually pushes down and locks the whole system into place. So you can really do that all in one motion. And then of course, when you're ready to shoot, press the trigger and it releases the string. Now, the entire design of this type of crossbow is completely focused on accuracy in target shooting. So, this is used exclusively on a target range, completely controlled environment. What that lets you do is it gives you the time to aim and get your shot lined up and then shoot. So to that end, the design of this crossbow stock is completely geared towards stability. So you'll notice, of course, this big protrusion on the bottom of the stock. That is the palm rest. So when you're aiming and getting ready to shoot, you can get your palm under the palm rest and tuck your elbow right into your body, and that creates an incredibly stable shooting platform for accurate shots. Having tested this a couple of times in comparison to some of the other crossbows that I've made, that bears out. It's incredibly stable and very, very accurate. This has the traditional rifle buttstock on it. There were other kinds of target crossbows in Belgium, very similar to this, where instead of this buttstock, they have a long protrusion out the back with a weight on the end. That's known as a balanced crossbow. Works exactly the same way, except instead of having the buttstock planted firmly into your shoulder, the long protrusion out the back rests on top of your shoulder, kind of like a bazooka, actually. And in fact, that's how those older, early modern Flemish target crossbows would work as well. They would go over the top of your shoulder. The other thing that I want to talk about is, of course, this sight on the front. Now, as you'll see, there's screws on the sides here and here, these two vertical posts, and two nuts on the top of the post as well. So this essentially means that you can move this sight up and down and left to right to adjust and sight in your crossbow. And then when you shoot, the bolt actually goes between those posts. On modern versions, you'll sometimes see actually an optical sight that's mounted onto the center there, and that's simply, you know, a modern version of that. The other thing that I would like to point out is on the trigger guard, you'll see there's an extra loop here, and sometimes you'll see multiple extra loops. And again, that's just extra place to put your fingers to increase the stability of when you're aiming and shooting. So in terms of the construction, all the wood, the whole wood body of this is made from walnut. Most of the metal parts are made from brass. The very top of the catch here is made from steel. Very frequently you would see that in brass as well. The prod itself is solid fiberglass. The draw weight is about 110 pounds. It's a fairly short draw length on this. This doesn't need to be particularly powerful. It's mainly for around 10 meter or so target shooting. All right, we're gonna give this a test. So let me show you how the spanning lever works. So first, you want to place the forks onto the string and then rotate the front forks down to get onto that lug. You can put it right on the ground and just push right down until you hear that click, and it's all locked. Now this one, I've designed it to use modern crossbow bolts. So you put the index vein in the slot, slide it right back so it's touching the string, and then you're ready. Make sure and get that elbow tucked nicely underneath there. So there we have it, the Belgian target crossbow. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.